The facts will be the facts. Once they are in, my leadership team and I will do what is needed to help assure this does not happen again. We will hold ourselves fully accountable.
The committee says it wants to see if GM will reveal how much it knew and when. Jonathan Betts is here with more.
Yeah, Michael, who knew what when is the big question. What we do know is that it's been a long road for General Motors, beginning back in 2002 when the company first approves these ignition switches, even though at the time it still did not meet company standards. 2 years after that, GM engineers start to wonder why the cars can turn off suddenly while driving. But it decides then a fix would be too expensive and take too long. Not long after that, the first death. Amber Marie Rose. She dies at the age of 16 while in Maryland. Her Chevy Cobalt had shut off. The airbags did not deploy. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration actually looks into this crash and other crashes over the years, but broader concerns are never raised. Later this year, GM warns dealers about the ignitions, but it doesn't order a recall. What the automaker does do 4 months after that, it quietly approves a new design for its 07 models with the ignition switches. Meanwhile, dozens are complaining their vehicles shut down for some reason. So by 2007, federal regulators look into it, but they see no trend. So after 3 months, NHTSA drops the investigation. In the following years, there are more concerns, more serious crashes, more people die. GM even goes bankrupt during this period. In 2010, the government again looks at the switches and again drops the investigation. The next month, 2 more people die. In the end, 13 people total are killed, and as the lawsuits pile up, General Motors issues the first of several recalls back in February, 10 years, Michael, after it first spotted problems.
10 years, that's a long time considering all the information and technology we have. We're still to this point right now. Jonathan, thanks so much. NHTSA Acting Director David Freeman is testifying before the committee right now, and he will likely face sharp questions over his agency's ability to keep Americans safe. Now, NHTSA, as it's referred to, has 51 people investigating potential defects, which is less than 10% of its overall staff. They look into more than 45,000 complaints a year submitted through its website or telephone hotline. Now, since 2004, the agency has issued recalls for 95 million vehicles, equipment, tires, as well as child restraints. Bottom line, the industry's main oversight agency relies on the car companies themselves for reports of faulty cars. Lauren Fix joins me from Rochester, New York. She's an automotive analyst and founder of Automotive Aspects. Lauren, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, how exactly does the NHTSA monitor for defective cars?
Well, they look for what they call spikes in data. So they're getting information from manufacturers, information from customers. So if you do have a problem with your vehicle, first thing I tell people, contact the dealer. Maybe there isn't a recall or a technical service bulletin. You'd go to nhtsa.gov and either call or enter your information in the computer. That information is then monitored. Now, again, insurance companies also report. So if there's deaths, there's some faulty problem, there's lawsuits, all that information is collected. So it's all laid on top of each other to see there's a spike. Now, they did find spikes in the Cobalt. In 2006 and in 2010, investigators came to the executives at NHTSA and said, you know, we've got a problem, we should investigate this. What happened? We don't know. Also should be important to note during that time that the government had taken over General Motors, and that may be something that might get uncovered. Of course, Dave Friedman was not in charge at that time, so they'll have to go back and do some investigation. How much will be released? That needs to be found out.
Well, NHTSA said it reviewed data from a number of sources back in 2007, but it didn't warrant a formal investigation, which for a lot of people, considering the information we've had lately, seems kind of hard to believe. What kind of data do they examine in a case such as this one, and how could that review not have warranted a formal investigation in this particular case?
Well, I agree with you, Michael. I believe they should have had a formal investigation at that time. Actually, there should have been one even previous to that. You know, we've got 12 deaths and accidents, some of which we don't even know about, plus an additional 303 non-airbag deployments, which would happen if the key switch was in the off position, which is the same thing as if your vehicle was parked. Those active safety features, now active safety features are ones like seat belts and things that you can actually see and you know about. Passive safety features like airbags only function when the car is running and only if there's an accident. So if those passive safety features aren't working, the car is usually in the off position. Those should have been reasons to check further. Maybe a lawyer didn't check into it, maybe an expert didn't check into it, but these are things that need to be investigated, and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is aware when there are accidents. They get reports. They have tons and tons of data and content coming in, and their team, obviously this is all computer, this is far from stacks of paper like it may have been in the 50s. They're actually going through information, and when there is a couple accidents that are happening for the same reason, that would warrant maybe someone to look a little deeper. They see a problem, then they would start an investigation. Now, obviously there's a chain of command, as there is in any company. An investigator who's looking might say something to his superior, we have a problem, let's investigate. That person would then take it to the next level. They would contact the manufacturer for more data. That data would come in from the manufacturer, assuming that sometimes they say there isn't a problem, we know what's going on, it's just a particular thing, but they have to be able to prove that. So I think in this case, both GM dropped the ball by not disclosing information to NHTSA, and NHTSA didn't go further by saying, we need this information. But I still think there's a third party involved, and that's Delphi. They were supposed to do their quality control on this part, and they actually submitted a part without it meeting the specifications of the blueprint. There is just a little off, there is a quality control standard called QS 9000, which at that time was the current standard. And that part did not meet that standard, but GM still accepted it and put it on cars for years and years, even though layers and layers of management, different layers, different teams knew about it.
Absolutely. Lauren Fix, founder of Automotive Aspects, thanks so much. Well, a deadly Ebola outbreak in West